Welcome to season 2 of Nexus of Narratives. I am so excited to share part 2 of Carina's episode. If you are a new listener, welcome. If you have been listening since the beginning, welcome back. Thank you for your compassion as I am still sick and continuing to use this AI voice for the opening. When I am fully recovered, I will be joined by a dear friend for the intros and continued conversations about episodes that will take place on Patreon. If you have not yet, I invite you to join the new and growing community on Patreon. Tiers start at $1 per month for early release episodes. Additional tiers include exclusive content, live community conversations with me, opportunities to join as live virtual audience for recordings, and more. Search Nexus of Narratives on Patreon or click the link in the show notes. It is a small and vital way to support keeping this podcast going, and with perks that make it well worth the investment. Don't be fooled by the lights, mics, or set. This is an extremely grassroots production, and all support is extremely impactful. And on that note, the grassroots nature is a beautiful way to demonstrate to every listener that, yes, you can also have these courageous conversations anywhere, anyhow. As you know, we are kicking off season 2 with a 2-part episode with a dear friend of mine, Carina. If you have not yet listened to part 1, please go back and listen to that before part 2. And yes, come back on Monday for the next episode of Nexus of Narratives. From here on out, if there is a 2-part episode, you can expect part 1 on Monday and part 2 on Thursday. Listeners, please be aware, Carina's episodes come packed with a lot of heaviness. She was born into a dangerous cult and has used that pain to bring light to those around her. It really is an incredible story, but there is a lot to be warned about. This episode includes topics and themes that may be difficult to hear, such as assault, sexual assault of adults and minors, suicide, murder, and more. If you or a loved one are suffering, please know we want you here. Call or text the National Suicide Hotline 988 for support. Without further delay, let's listen to the rest of this fantastic conversation with Carina and all the masks of humor we wore along the way. See you back here wherever you like to watch or listen on Monday for the next regularly scheduled conversation. So your mom's brother's wife is the one who had passed.
I'm pretty sure she was not the first.
Mm-hmm.
But she was the first that came into my awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, there was I guess you call him an uncle-in-law, who passed. Same way.
Mm.
Things aren't odd to me yet. I'm just like, that's happening to a lot of these people that are growing up, and they're eating good food. They're not eating, junk, no medication, no vaccinations. There's like not one toxin in these people's bodies. And yet that I know of, that they're dying just left and right in the same exact way. And then there was my cousin, and this was the turning point for me. This is when I started questioning hard. He was 22. He just went through all of his schooling to get his dream job. He wanted to be a welder. He got a job for $95 an hour. He was so happy, so stoked. And then I get a text from one of my aunts saying, "I'm so sorry to hear about your cousin." What are you talking about? Well, Trevor, nobody told you? No. What happened? Well, he killed himself. What? And so then I called his sister, And she's sobbing and telling me that he hung himself. And I was like, what is happening? So we go to the funeral. My aunt wanted us to sign his shirt. I didn't make it in time to do that while it was off of him. So she pulled back his shirt, and I noticed this super thin line here. And I said, wait, what? Like this? He hung himself with a belt, one of those, like thick belts. And he was 6'3", pushing 6'4". He looped it around the top of the bunk, apparently, put it around his neck and leaned forward. And then I did more digging into it. And there was this girl he had been dating who had been married, or was married, when they were seeing each other. She was 5'1". Somebody got the 911 recorded a 911 phone call, in the evening of that night that he hung himself, apparently. And she said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to," and hung up. And then a couple hours later, another 911 call comes in. She's frantic and stated that she found him leaning forward, lifted him, his dead weight, lifted him, took the belt off of his neck, laid him down, and called 911. When they got there, he was still warm. They didn't perform CPR. They found a empty bottle of vodka. They found a razor with some blood on it in the bathroom. Their investigation was done in 20 minutes, and they let anyone who wanted to come in and go. And so while I noticed that line around his neck, I also noticed there was no autopsy scars. And I was like, whoa. Like, wait, this girl's story is not matching up. Like, I can't even go in. I'm pretty strong. I can't even go in and lift dead weight of somebody and take a belt off there. Like, this is not happening. Mm-hmm. So I went and asked my aunt immediately, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know." I went and asked his dad, what? I don't know. No, like, this has to be done. Like, why is, like, did they even do a toxology report? Did they like, I don't understand mm-hmm. why these people aren't getting autopsies. It is the law to get an autopsy in the state of Colorado, unless you're dying at home or in a hospice with a diagnosed disease, you are getting an autopsy. Mm-hmm. And nobody cared. Nobody cared to make that a thing or anything. He was buried immediately. This was also the aunt I was talking about. This was her son.
The aunt that had passed.
Yeah. And I know he had a hard time with it, but I knew where he was in life. Like, that wasn't a belt mark. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 2 years after that, his little brother hung himself. And
quote unquote hung himself.
I'm pretty sure he was very it was an encouragement thing by his partner. And just by talking to his partner and seeing him at the funeral, and knowing my cousin telling me, he just says I should kill myself and get it over with. And he's drunk, though. He's on drugs. He's fine. It's just he doesn't mean it. And he ended up doing it. And at the funeral, he said he just wanted to be with his brother and his mom. Okay. So again, my uncle went and got his body, no autopsy, nothing, just buried. And then my mom gets fancier. And she even goes to the hospital, and there's never a diagnosis. They never draw blood. Then they get to I lost my train.
Your mom got fake cancer.
She did. So at the time of taking care of her, I had been in California, Northern California, picking up a trailer from my partner's brother. And it had been 4 months. She called and said, I'm pretty sick. The hospital says it's cancer. And I said, well, they told you it was cancer from an x-ray? And she said, yeah, it hurt my knee, and right above my knee there's these I don't remember what they're called now, but they're almost like bubbles of something, like almost like an abscess, like all over. And her femur was just Swiss cheese.
Oh.
And I said, they told you it was cancer from an x-ray? And she said, yes. And I said, that's not correct. Like they have to run,
how they diagnose
they have to run blood tests. And I mean, they can look at it and be like, I think it is, but then that's a HIPAA violation.
Right.
You have to know for sure.
Additional tests.
Exactly.
And
right.
Get some biopsies.
Right.
Run some
Which
blood
they
work.
never did. So I come back. When I left 4 months prior, she looked around her age, 57, 56. When I got back, she looked like she was well into her 80s. And I was like, what happened?
And how long was this between seeing her?
4 months. Yeah. 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 I left in April sometime, got back around August, and she was just, her femurs had both turned in. So her, what is that, knock-kneed? Yeah, she was knock-kneed all of a sudden, especially on the right. And my stepfather was super irately mad that I was there taking care of her. So the second day I was there, the first day he had left drunk, pissed off that I was there to take care of her, or being in the way, I guess. The second day I was there, because I had slept right next to her, and she never slept. She got up constantly to go to the bathroom, and I was like, wear a diaper. Like, you have to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
This is so important. And so I was in the back room because she was going to the bathroom. He was in the shower, and she asked him, I guess, to get her little portable toilet thing that she had. And she was sleeping in the living room at that point. And he was like, well, why don't you have those people get it? And then she got very upset and said, that's my daughter, and went to get up off the toilet and tripped over his towel, fell. And so I was sitting in the back room, and he came in on the phone super angry at me. And he said, your mom just broke her leg. Why aren't you in there with her? Why weren't you watching her? In the shower? I'm not. What? Why did you leave her if she broke her leg? And I went in there immediately, and she is sitting up against the wall, compound fracture of the femur. And I get up behind her and take, very medical like position to be able to get her to not look at her leg, but get her to lay her leg down. And I was like, shouldn't look at your leg. It looks pretty cool though. Like, I've never seen this before, ever. And she giggled, and I kissed her forehead, and she said, she said, as soon as I saw you, my pain went from 100% to 10%. And I said, yeah. And she said, yeah, I haven't felt this kind of love for so long. And I was like, you have been with this man for 27 years. What do you mean you haven't felt this kind of love? And he came in, and he kept saying, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I was just like, I don't know. It struck me weird. I had received those sorries before, and I didn't understand the tone. And I'll touch on later why that tone was so familiar. But yeah, so I told her, in your faith, you going to the hospital to get this fixed is a no-no. I said, but you also have to remember that this is a compound fracture of the femur. There's a main artery that runs right along there. They have to do surgery. And because this happened, it must be okay with God. So I would like you to just calm down and go to the hospital and get your leg just put back together. And she said, okay. So she left, and I went there. I followed the ambulance there. I got in because it was during COVID, so one person allowed. And I was talking to her, and she seemed okay. And I went home, and I went to go there the next day, and he had already gotten in, so I couldn't get in to see her. She ended up having surgery on both femurs because the Swiss cheese effect was on both. So she had 2 rods put in. She actually woke up during surgery. She could hear tink, 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 tink. And she looked up at the guy and said, "Could you be quiet or something?" And they had to turn up her anesthesia. I was like, "You didn't feel anything, right?" And she's like, "No, I didn't feel anything. I just heard them hammering."
Wow.
Yeah. So she gets back home. I'm assisting her in her walking. She walked like 3 hours after she got home. I was feeding her really good food. She was improving, like leaps and bounds improving. And then my stepdad started getting even more irritated that I was there. And so for a day or two, I was just like, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go help my friend move. So I was gone for 2 days, and the entire 2 days I was gone, she threw up nonstop. And I get back, and she's not throwing up anymore. And I was like, huh. He's even more irritated with me that I'm there. And I'm staying up, Gabby. I'm staying up all night long. Like there is hardly any sleep for me. I'm so tired all the time. So I think one of the last straws was when I had made her some chicken and rice. I was so tired that I made it for her, served it to her, put the stuff in the sink, filled it with water, and went back to bed. And so when my stepdad got back, he was like irately pissed off that I had left a mess. It was just dishes on the sink. I'd cleaned up my other mess, but it doesn't matter. And so she was in a lot of pain after these surgeries because the doctor only prescribed her gabapentin. That's it. And she was actually taking it, and she felt horrible because of her faith. You know, you're not supposed to take anything like that. Pain is not supposed to be dulled. If it's there, you're supposed to feel it. So she felt very much out of whack with her faith. And she would tell me things, which it seemed like her mind was slowly going. She would tell me things like, could you hand me that blanket? And I'd be like, you mean your lighter? Yes. Okay. My mother was a brilliant person. So that was just I was just like, huh. And then she told me when she got back from the hospital, she said, "I have this bruise on my head and I don't understand how it happened." And I looked on the back of her head and there was this ginormous black and blue bruise. And she said, "I just don't understand how it happened because I was getting up from the toilet and I fell forward. But then I ended up on the wall 4 feet away. And it still didn't even register to me what had occurred in that bathroom. Because she did fall forward. I'm not sure when her leg snapped. She said she didn't feel it, she didn't hear it. But he was in there. He was very irately pissed off. And I can only come to the conclusion that he picked her up and threw her at some point. So I didn't even realize it when she was telling me that. I was like, that is really weird. And then she told me that Dad's been putting laxatives in my water. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, he said he's been putting laxatives in my water every day. That is so not good for you. Don't let him do that. Tell him to stop doing that. I will tell him to stop doing that. And she's like, okay, it's not good for me. And I said, no, that will actually dehydrate you really badly. And so then my little sister from Arizona calls up, is begging my mother to send me down there because she had just lost her 2 kids. She had started in with meth. It got out of control. The state took the kids away from her and she wanted my help getting them back. So I didn't want to leave. I told my mom that and she begged me to go. So I went. I took my daughter and my partner at the time and we went down there. Keeping up with a crackhead is busy work. They are busy, busy people.
While on the other side of your brain,
yes,
your dying mother.
Yeah, exactly. So I was there for maybe a month and my mom was gone. And I had went to help my sister move out of her place. I had gotten it set up with the courts that I was pretty much her guardian, I guess, and that I wanted the kids also. So that was all in the works, and she would not comply with anything. She would not go do the drug testing. that they wanted her to do. She would not go to the visitations with the kids like they wanted her to do. She would not do anything. And so finally, I had called my mom and I was so done. And I was like, she won't quit. And she said, well, just please get at least the kids back here. And I noticed that she was slurring her words really bad. And I was like, Mom, is your tongue swollen? And she's like, well, yeah. What have you eaten? Have you been drinking water? I've been drinking water. I've only been able to eat, or they give me a tablespoon of something every day. Her, my stepdad and my aunt, her sister. But I just throw it up. How long has it been like this? A week? I think maybe you should go back to the hospital. Well, no, I don't want to cause any problems. It's not part of my faith, or this is not how God wants me to die. I don't want to cause any problems. So I called the police department and I said, I need a well checkup. And they said, well, they have to agree to go. And I said, well, don't, because her tongue is so swollen you can't even understand what she's saying. So maybe just pretend like you didn't hear her. She says no, but she needs to go to the hospital. And so they go over there. This police officer determines that she needs to go to the hospital. So they take her. I used to work at the hospital. So they take her to the emergency room. I am currently stuck in Arizona because I had passed out at the wheel, being so exhausted chasing my sister. Crossed 4 lanes of traffic, didn't hit anybody, but I hit a brick wall and my car was totaled. And so I'm waiting for the insurance company to give me a rental, and I'm basically stuck, not being able to help or do anything with my mom. So I call them, they take her to the hospital. I call the ER and talk to the guy who was in there, and he said, this is the most fucking disgusting thing I've ever seen. This is gross negligence, and I need a list of names of people that do not need to be in here. I gave him the name of everybody. Pretty sure family dog that had died years ago, I gave him the name. Like everybody.
Make sure no one's going in.
Nobody's
under the
going
identity
in.
of
Right.
the family dog.
Right. So I talked to her before the night's done, and she's in so much pain. And I hear the nurse came in. She came in and said, your kidneys are completely shot. And I was like, how? All she drinks is water. That's all she has drank. So I talked to her and I say, I'm pretty sure Dad was hurting you. You're safe now. I want you to rest and I want you to get better. And she said, okay. My stepdad's sister works at the hospital. His brother-in-law is a sheriff, and I called the next morning on her phone, and he answered, my stepdad, and I was like, what are you doing in there?
Sorry, you called who in your stepdad's?
Called my mother's cell phone that was with her
at the hospital,
and he answered, and I said, what are you doing there? And he went, hello? Why are you in there? Hello? So I hang up the phone. I call the front desk and I'm like, hi, there is an unauthorized visitor in this room. So she calls security right away. Nothing happens. I call back. He answers again. So I call MedSearch, call the front desk, and I say, there is an unauthorized visitor in that room. Oh, no, she asked for him. She asked for him. Okay. So if an abused child goes into the hospital and they ask for their abuser, their parent, you're just going to let them in? Well, this is different. She's dying of cancer. How do I get him out of the room? Yeah. How do I take these steps to get him out of the room? And she said, well, maybe you could try an adult protection order. Okay. So I got that department number, got that name, called them, and they said, well, we need a police report. Also, can I give you maybe some like accounts where he's been abusive? Well, no, we need the police report. Okay. So I call the police department. That officer is not there that day. Cool. I'm thinking, okay, where else would this police report be? The hospital. So I call the emergency room. I keep trying to call the emergency room. It keeps getting rerouted to registration. And I talked to the guy in registration, somebody I used to work closely with. And I said, hey, I need to talk to so-and-so in the emergency room. Well, I can't do that. Why? Well, what if he's not in there? Use the loudspeaker? Well, what if he's not in the building? What are you doing right now? I'm doing a very serious thing right now. I need you to stop. Well, what are you trying to do? I'm trying to get the police report for this woman. Oh, I remember that one clearly. Yeah, they didn't bring in a police report, and they said it wasn't gross negligence. Wow, dude. Okay. My mom's gonna fucking die. This is fucking not cool. So I called back up to MedSearch, and the doctor ended up getting on the phone with me, screamed at me that my mother is dying of cancer. I need to stop and accept it. I said, there was no blood ever ran. How is she dying of cancer? And he hung up on me. So they ended up drugging her up, sending her home, and she passed away within 24 hours. And it wasn't until after she passed that I realized the series of events, like her big bruise on the back of her head, her broken leg, even how her leg got to be Swiss cheesy. Like, it's just all these things started falling into place. And I was not able to trust anyone around me. I was just in this state of terror that is not even, like, you can't even
I can't imagine.
put words to it. Everyone I knew, everyone I trusted, everyone I thought loved me and my mom and us, just gone, just terrified. I had asked a family member why she didn't get an autopsy, and they said, "Oh, that's for embalming and stuff." And I said, "No, it's not. It's for forensic purposes." And I would like to know why she didn't get that. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I came back. It was days after the funeral because I couldn't make it. Didn't even really want to be honest with you. I didn't know who to trust. There was just, this whole town was just against me so hard in protecting this woman. And I didn't understand that. So I ended up going back to Phoenix for a year, going up to Northern California for another year. And that's where I found this book called Codependent No More, and by Melanie Beattie. And that book just blew me away, because when you're codependent, when you're raised in that environment, you are so focused on controlling everything and everybody around you. You never take a look at your actions or your responsibility in anything. So I remember reading this book and thinking, oh yeah, I am the villain in this story. I am making this worse, so much worse, and this stops with me. Like, my daughter will not be raised any longer the way that I was raised, in that vibration, in that frequency, in that she was going to be raised in authenticity. That was the first thing I thought of whenever I read this book.
And when was this?
This was in 2022, the very end, probably about this time, actually. About this time. My ex-partner had said, I'm going to go to Denver. And for some reason, I was just like, you have to take me. I have to go. And I didn't know why. Denver just called to me. And we got here and we got a place, and we were leaving the DMV, and I see these signs, because my mom and I had a sign company together. We taught ourselves graphic design. We taught ourselves the entire industry. And I was like, I bet they would need some help. I'm just going to look. So I went to their website. They had 2 positions open, sales and production. They've done it all. So I went on the interview, and he's like, I kind of feel like the universe sent you to me, because nobody has ever gotten on my website and applied. It's always been through Indeed. And I was like, oh, well, that's really cool. So I ended up getting hired. He happened to be in this place in life where he had done all this personal growth work. And so after 90 days, every employee would be sent to this basic course. And he told me a little bit about it, 32 exercises. It kind of dives into your subconscious. And I was like, I want this so bad. Like, I had a timer for like 90 days. 90 days hit, and I was like, I'm ready. Let's go. And he goes, actually, you gotta wait for the next class. And I was like, oh. So I go, and just my entire world, Gabby, just flipped upside down. I had read this book. I had done a little bit of personal growth for myself. This class I was in a meditation, I remember. And I recall I was, Joe Dispenza.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was in that like delta state. Like, I was deep. I was so deep. And I remember thinking, I have not heard or felt my heart for so long, because everything was so painful that I just shut shit down. Like, it was just, I was basically a shell of a human at that moment, until I realized I cut this off. Like, it was a part of me that was too painful, so I shut it down. And my desire was to have that back. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I could hear my heart pumping, and I could feel just overwhelming just feelings of everything. So that was the day my little box in the attic of all the shit was just destroyed. And I've never looked back.
Did you keep a physical box of shit?
I did not keep a physical box.
Just like you're in your brain and in your heart.
Yeah.
Like,
It was.
This has run its course.
It's over. It's done. I get to live now and not just survive. I get to pass these things on to my daughter. Because there was that one step that I just needed support with, and I didn't know that until I got there.
Mm-hmm. But into this, like, finally coming into a space that's like, here, we're going to hold you, we're going to work with you, and to nurture your authenticity, so that you can take that out into the world, mm-hmm. as opposed to have grown up.
Yep.
Like, this is the box we want you to fit into.
Right. And
even though we don't think you belong in this box,
right.
You still have to be within these parameters.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think so. Throughout all of this, I constantly try to keep the lens of like, what are the beliefs that are driving it? Mm-hmm. How did that shift or not? And no matter what shifts you made, what I find fascinating about this is you always had this part of you that's like, this is right, this is wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna be just like wholeheartedly invested in what I know is right.
Yeah.
No matter what. And I'm just like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
To me, to have that strength, no matter what. You say, well, my authenticity was quieted, held down, trapped in a sense. Mm-hmm. But there was still that part of you that I would argue that a part of your authenticity that didn't make it into that box was the like, fearless advocate. Mm-hmm. That's like, this is right, this is wrong. Yep. No matter how many times you push me down, I'm not going to surrender to that. Yep. I'm going to surrender to what I believe is right.
Yep.
I just think that is absolutely incredible. Holy hell.
Yeah. It was that love. That was that driving force, was that love. That the kind of love we know now. Mm-hmm. I knew it was out there. I just wasn't feeling it. I knew it was in me. I guess I could feel it in me. I didn't feel it from others until I fully accepted it in myself. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the world is not evil. People are amazing. People are loving. People are wanting just the best for themselves and for others. And I spent so long on the fear side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so curious about everyone in this area. So pervasive. The town itself, the police and judiciary system, the hospital system, mm-hmm. the people within it, the religious side of this area, all a part of this. Like, it's something that I feel like, according to my worldview, has been only in movies and shows and like made up. Right. And then what's being blown up about my world is being in this space to be like, It's real. Oh God.
Monsters are real.
Not that I grew up sheltered or anything, right? But there's certain things that are, oh, that's like made up stuff. Like somebody made that up because it's a really compelling story for this.
For sure.
It's me putting my mask of humor on my fear.
Yeah.
So there's so many directions that I want to go. And I'm so grateful for your transparency, for your honesty, for your authenticity. Like you've mentioned, being more aware of your body and your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout this experience of not only talking to you, but hosting these conversations on this platform is like, I feel it in my chest is where I feel my heart. Like, well, I mean, like there's the duh, but of like this openness, and I can feel this openness, like talking to you, that it's almost like my heart is hugging your heart while you're sharing this. And so much gratitude for the comfort that you feel to share this with me. It's like, wow, what an honor. And like, wow. Wow. My body has gone through so many different experiences just listening, and I can't imagine what it's like to live that. So I can't even like be like, oh, here's an experience of mine to share a part of me that can no, I'm not even going to do that this time, because I've said as we go through these stories that I care about sharing parts of myself in order to maintain authenticity in people are sharing really tender and vulnerable parts of themselves. So if at moments I feel a resonance to bring something up, to share a piece of myself, so that it's not only me asking others to expose parts of themselves. Like, sorry, we'll save a part of me for another time.
You need to digest a little.
Not nothing.
Yeah.
I can't relate to any of that.
It's a lot.
And I think that's okay.
It's only a sliver of it.
And it's only a sliver of it. And I think that's okay as we're like going through these conversations, to hold space for people when they're sharing these really tender and vulnerable parts of themselves, to say, I'm here for you. My heart's open for you. My heart's hugging your heart.
I feel it. Thank you.
And it's okay that I can't relate.
Yeah, it's absolutely okay. I wouldn't want you to.
Exactly.
I really love you. I really wouldn't want you to relate to that. It's not the easiest, no.
And the one thing that I think we can relate on, and the part that we'd connected on, is taking the painful parts of our lives and our experiences and saying, I want to use that to fuel, how can I help make the world a better place?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's something we connect with on a really deep level that brought us together in a way.
I think so.
And to say, okay, I believe that raising the awareness of people is really important, and supporting people and holding their hearts and holding space for them and having compassion and nurturing the growth of individuals to a collective. It sounds culty to say the greater good. But I do believe that as we continue to nurture the growth of individuals and be like, okay, here, little birdie, like I'm here to support you. How can you grow to be the best version of yourself? And go. And it's the not culty side of it, to say it's not to be a part of my greater good and my vision, to how you can still stay in a container of growth for my purpose. Yeah. It's like, go and grow on your own, and let's support one another. Yeah. And
discover the fierce, fiery love you have for yourself, and then it will spread like wildfire.
Yeah. And I think the world, no matter what the experience, it's like there's so many ways that the world puts those boxes and those walls around us, and instead to find ways to break down those walls. It's not easy. It's not comfortable to sit in. And I've noticed culturally this theme of, but just take that box and just put it away and go grow over there. Yeah. Like as if that box is never going to come back to haunt you. Like there is a healthy way of saying, I'm going to come back to this. Right. It's not the time. Right cabinet. Now. Yeah. In a conversation that we're being recorded, maybe now is not the time to have like a full-fledged breakdown about, whatever may have come to my brain. So we'll just come back and sit with that in a minute. But to heal those parts, to sit with and experience and to feel, I think is so important too, rather than how we kind of as a society acted like, oh, no, but if we just like take it over there.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Cover it with a blanket.
Yeah. And I don't think that's how it works. Like the more work that I've done on myself through therapy, through personal development, is like to like digging into spirituality is no, you have to sit with to move through. And that sitting with can be really, really, really painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so incredible that you're coming from all of this pain that's still very recent.
It doesn't feel that recent, to be honest.
You act like it was like a lifetime away. Ago. So I'm like, okay, and when was this? And you're like, oh, 2022. I'm like,
yeah, no, wasn't that long ago. My mother finally passed 2 days before my birthday in 2021.
Still so recent.
Yeah.
And
still very
the
recent.
way that you've turned your life around already is just like so miraculous.
Yeah. It was two options for me at that point. It was surrender to the pain and the trauma and be whatever shell that was, whether it was not even on this earth anymore, or take all that and use it to fuel my journey, to fuel my growth, to fuel my daughter's life. I just wasn't just me. So I really had to figure out what was most important. Was it important to be victim to all of it, or was it important to overcome it all and use it for something amazing?
I want to sit with that for a minute. That's the choice. I think in all of these moments is, am I going to be victim to what happened to me? And there's real victimization that you experienced, but am I going to be victim and prisoner to my own pain and experiences and let that hold me back from my potential? Or am I going to, that's my new path forward, that's my story and I'm rewriting my story. I'm creating new chapters. My story doesn't end here.
Right. Yeah. Stuff that happened to me, it doesn't define me.
So amazing. So before we dive into the same questions that I ask everybody, you have your youngest daughter that you have a close relationship with.
Yep.
You mentioned working on reconnecting with your oldest. What do those relationships look like right now?
So my oldest, we don't talk often. She's 22. She's very angry at the world. I totally get that. I won't allow certain treatment any longer, not even from my blood. So she's on her own journey right now, and I'm giving her space to do that. She'll come to a point maybe someday that trying to control outside forces instead of herself and being super angry doesn't work. It just doesn't. And I believe that, your brain gets to a certain maturity and you can handle those things. You can grasp the concept of, I can only control me. So she's on that journey, and I'm loving her from afar. My youngest, she had her grandma ripped away from her at 8 years old, and she was really close to her. So we're working through her loss and her grief and still, to this day. And I didn't realize it hadn't been that long until you said that. I seriously feel like it was a millennia ago. I just feel like I've really shown up for myself a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm very proud of me for that. Yeah, Lex and I are still working through some things, and she is a therapist, and so we're getting there.
Don't go anywhere just yet. We're going to continue this conversation in just a moment.
Check it out. Yeah.
I am so grateful that you have chosen to spend your time with me here on the Nexus of Narratives. I know that time is our most invaluable resource, and I am grateful for your support by just listening. If you would like to further support the podcast and my continued work in this space, please go to www.nexusofnarratives.org. That is NEXUSOFNARRATIVES.org for more content, ways to support, and connect with others. The Nexus of Narratives is a project, a passion project of mine in the Nexus Impact. So if you are looking for coaching services to become the type of leader that others want to follow, or help improve the culture and engagement of your teams, your organizations, and build greater community to help reduce lost costs due to turnover and inefficiency, reach out to me. I would love to help support you in your work. And if that is the avenue that you would like to go, you can find me and connect on my website. That is thenexusimpact.com or THENEXUSIMPACT.com. Thank you.
How can your story create connection for people who might resonate with anything that you shared?
That you're not alone. You're not, it's very typical of humans, I think, to think in any situation that we're alone in something. And we're not. We're all very much connected in an electromagnetic way. But also there's this loneliness that comes with feeling like I did growing up. And now, knowing once I connected with me again, which I think I was just naturally me when I was little. And I'm not sure who or when that was, stuffed in that box. But you're not alone. There's people out here that will love you anyways. There's people out there that will embrace you and give you a heart hug, and regardless of what you went through and your trials, your tribulations, things you've done to people, it doesn't matter. We're all still very much connected in love.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for non-scripted explaining the purpose
You're
of
welcome.
this.
You're welcome. Thank you for
I
recognizing.
didn't pay her off for this.
Just with really good crack water.
Yeah, whatever. Isn't that water to really go straight through you? Also imbued with the message of Nexus of Narratives.
Okay.
She's been refueled by a quick trip to the restroom.
I have been reborn.
And, has freshly put on the mask of humor.
Feels so good right now.
And then so thinking about someone who might be in a relatable place to anything that you shared, even that like fear and feeling of loneliness, you can still feel alone when you're surrounded by people,
right.
Which I think is maybe one of the most relatable things I've ever heard people share. And so many different people from different walks of life with different stories can talk about that loneliness and being around people. But it doesn't have to be just that. So for anyone who might feel a resonance to anything that you had shared, what might you say to your past self?
Oh, to my past self. I would definitely thank her, and for keeping a hold of that idea of the love that she knows is out there, and she knew it was out there, and I found it. And I didn't find it until I fell completely in love with myself. It's not even detectable until, or for me anyways, I'll speak in the place of I, it was not even detectable until I completely fell in love with myself and gave myself space to do that.
And I almost hear a little bit of like, listen to that little part of you. There's like a little part of us somewhere when we're in rough places that's still speaking our truth and our authenticity.
Yeah.
Like, listen to that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, like, in some of these different moments, I mean, so many years of different moments where you had either been quite literally disconnected, feeling disconnected, pushed away. Like, what did you need to feel most connected to the people around you?
I didn't feel so much of a connection to people as I did animals. That's pure love right there. And I think that's why I clung to it. Once I got to the ranch, it was me training dogs and training cats and horses. And there's just this purity there that I wasn't finding in the world. And I was desperate to find it somewhere. And I found it with animals. At 14, we got a couple of wild horses from the BLM. I named mine Romeo. He was this like deep sorrel, so he almost looked like purple almost. His hair had his mane and tail had blonde and sorrel, so it almost looked like purple and blonde. What is that, rainbow something? I can't remember the character. She had a horse with like rainbow colored hair, but that's what he reminded me of. He reminded me of like a My Little Pony or something. He was gorgeous. I didn't want to break him the way that I had seen other horses be broken. I didn't want to force him into anything. I wanted it to be an amazing experience for both of us. So I spent the first 2 weeks of our interactions just talking to him and blowing into his nose and gently and walking down the side of his body, just feeling him and letting him know I was there. And after 2 weeks, I put a saddle on him. He didn't buck. He didn't move. So I climbed up onto him and he just sat there. I was like, well, we did it.
After just 2 weeks.
After 2 weeks of just spending tons of time with him and showing him all this love and that he could trust me, and I felt that I could trust him, and that's the only reason I got up there. But yeah, that's what I clung to for a long time. And then when I didn't have that, it was the start of finding me again. My book should be called.
There you go.
Damn it.
And it's recorded, so
yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. TM. See.
No more. That was all of them.
And if someone has made it this far and they're like, I can't relate to a single thing you've said, how can your story create connection for people who have completely different beliefs and experiences than yours?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't believe that there needs to be any kind of resonance or like linked interactions or remember, like, if they can't relate, it's not all about trauma. It's not all about tragedy. It's about taking those things and building this foundation with them, and then using the remains to just keep elevating yourself. And I think that's an important message for anybody, whether they can resonate with my story or not. You're going places, and what paths, what choices are you going to make to get there? You know, everybody, a cup of pain is a cup of pain. It doesn't matter, what kind of contents are in it. It's painful and it's hurtful, and how are you going to react to that pain and that trauma?
Yes, perfect. response or two things that came to my mind when you shared that.
What?
The first is, I can't resonate with your story. And for me, what I feel has supported building connection is for me to be non-judgmental and to be like, I see you as you are. And I love that. I love you as you are. And I'm holding that. And then learning about these parts of you, it adds a sense of wonder and gratitude and, like, for me, joy and compassion, and just to be like, wow, what an amazing person, rather than to be like, you stuck around for way too long. Like, you did whatever for way too long.
Right.
You know, you should have, like, none of those. But to be like, wow, what a strong person to have endured so much through your life. To be like, I want to make the world a better place because I believe in love. Like, how can someone not love that, right? So that would be my answer for how I hold space for that, and to just hold openness for your heart and for who you are now, not for whatever tragedy may have happened to you, and not to be like, oh, you're a victim and you were wronged and all of this and I feel sorry for you. It's like, yeah, there were moments of your life that really sucked. But how cool that you're now going to make amazing things come of it.
Right.
And then there's the other thing that came to my mind is, here will be a little story of mine that came to my mind when you said a cup of pain is a cup of pain, is when I was in high school, my mom, as I was growing up, my mom actually brought me around to all of her different, like, humanitarian efforts. Like, with the Junior League of Las Vegas, she was like, we're going to go do service projects together. With different leadership groups she was with, I went along with her and did service projects. She cared that I grew up with giving back to the community. And I love that she did, because now I'm like, I'm going to do the same with my daughter. Like, really, it helps to expand your worldview. And so one of the service projects was with the Nevada shelter or Las Vegas shelter, one of the shelters for homeless youth. And so they had a series of homes in a small community that were specifically designated for homeless youth. And so long as the, kids, teens, I believe there was like a minimum age. I think they had to be of high school age. Maybe they had different groups for younger kids, but they could live in homes together. They kind of had this like roommate situation. Everything was taken care of: food, housing, utilities. They had to go to school, and there were different like rules of helping them become, contributing members of society. And so one of these projects was to help with some of the renovations within the homes as they were getting ready for new kids to come in. And I had met a handful of boys that were in one of the homes, and I had developed a friendship with one. And I maintained a friendship with him, and he had gone to serve in the military and had come back, and we connected just to catch up. And I don't know if it was on a phone call or something. At one point, I was sharing about the pain I had felt in losing my uncle to suicide, who was like a father figure to me, to my father kicking me out of the house because I went to the homecoming dance and calling me all sorts of horrible things, and my heart breaking from that. And it was all within less than a year that my uncle had taken his life. My grandfather had passed away, my great grandma passed away, and then my dad left. And these were some of the people that were closest to me. We were a very, very small family on my mom's side. And so like that, like our Thanksgiving went from being vibrant and having a lot of people to being like 3 of us. It was my mom, my grandma, and I, and that was it. We actually chose to go to Hawaii for holidays one year because we were like, we don't want to do this, which was like so fantastic with the whole other thing. But through all of that loss that I was sharing with him, like how broken I felt my heart was. And then at one moment I was like, I can't even complain to you. Like, the entire rug of your life was ripped out from under you. You were in a shelter for homeless youth. Like, your mom was doing drugs and trying to negatively influence you. And like, your whole family was ripped apart from these tragic things. How can I even complain to you or share with you my pain. And he's like, if the worst pain that you know is a paper cut and the worst pain that I know is broken bone, how are they different? And I was
I really like that.
like,
Give me chills.
And that has stuck with me, and that will continue to stick forever. So when you said a cup of pain is a cup of pain, that was the first thing that I thought of. I was like, wow, that's like really beautiful. And I thought it was like so cool how this person could hold space for me. Right. Even though, yeah, I can relate to what he'd gone through. He knew I couldn't relate to what I'd gone through or what he had gone through. Right. But was still holding compassion for me. Right. In that. I thought it was so incredible.
Which is the ultimate act of, one of the ultimate acts of love. Yeah. Just being with someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know where he is now, and I hope he's doing well.
You should stop.
I don't even know that I remember his name.
Well, maybe find that.
And yeah, maybe I'll figure it out.
I could find it again.
But thank you so much for a really long conversation. This is definitely a two-part.
Yeah.
Thank you sharing so much.
Thank you for holding space for me. And the heart hug. That was really sweet.
That'll be heart hug. And
full circle.
Yeah, full circle to the one-armed T-Rex here that's holding the microphone on its back. Holding a microphone on its back.
Yes.
And so as we wrap this up, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Just to let listeners know, and watchers, or both, that it's not, there's always that light in you. I don't think it ever fades completely, and to just light it up. Light it up and blind the fuck out of some people,
I can't think of a better way to end this.
Thank you so much, so deeply for spending your time with me here on the Nexus of Narratives. I hope that you found this to be a tremendously valuable use of your time and your capacity, and that this might help you to create greater connection and compassion in the spaces all around you.
I think if I go to the bathroom, I'll put it fine, but it's like, it's very distracting, Gabby.
You can go to the restroom again, guys.
I'm dying.
My brain's still doing no.
Set. I'm gonna get you one for Christmas.
Oh, great! Thank you.
It's just
it's gonna get me asleep.
Yes, exactly.
Great. Now I know what all of my social media content will be. Now it's just you with a slate.
Yes, and then every content I will make sure to gather it. Gabby overdoing it with the slate.
Yeah. All right, I know it's coming now.
All right, it's coming.
Okay, so back to the questions.